Hello, everyone. Welcome to engAGING Gerontology Talks. I am Zoe Byington, a master's student at Georgetown studying aging and health, and I am here with my co-host today, Sherry Snelling.
And hi, everybody. I'm a corporate gerontologist and CEO founder of Caregiving Club and an advisor for Zoe on this project.
And today we have Cynthia Hutchins, who's coming to us from Bank of America. She's a financial gerontologist. And do you want to give a little brief overview about yourself, Cynthia?
Sure. Cynthia Hutchins. I go by Cyndi. Only my mother calls me Cynthia, and then only when she's mad. So we'll just go with Cyndi from now on.
Cyndi all the way.
I have been in the financial services industry for over 40 years now, and I've seen a lot of changes. I've had several different roles through my career path, and I'm excited to share that with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Cyndi, with that. I'm glad you clarified that. I'm so used to being like, I need to be so formal. So I'm glad you cleared that up with us.
Yep.
So getting started into this, I know you studied at Towson for your undergrad, but then why did you decide to go back to school and get a degree in gerontology?
So that's somewhat of a long story. When I was starting out in the financial services field in 1983, I was watching my grandmother age. And let's fast forward about 20 years into my practice. My grandmother passed away. And she passed away at the age of 96, and she retired when she was 55. Now, when you think of the ramifications of that, she was 41 years in retirement. She only planned to live to be about 70 to 75. And, at that time, that was considered to be a good long life, right? So I started thinking about, because I was in the business of advising people about their retirement planning. And so I started to think about how things had changed. If you think about retirement planning in the 80s, when I started in the business, it was how do we maximize our savings as we move towards our retirement in order to supplement our pensions, which practically no longer exist anymore unless you are working for the government in some aspect. So to supplement our pensions, to provide for our discretionary spending, vacations, and steaks on the grill and things like that. As pensions started to fall away, and we became more and more dependent on ourselves through employer plans like 401ks, 403bs, 457 plans. The combination of being self-dependent and living to be in our 90s, 100, so a 20, 30, 40-year retirement, people were starting to ask very different questions. And so it was really just to answer those questions that I decided to go back to school and study. I consider myself a lifelong learner. And so the idea of earning a master's in gerontology was as much for me as it was for my clients. And it was not about career advancement, although, the whole world opened up after I graduated. So hopefully that answers the question.
It definitely does. And I think it highlights one of the things that why people kind of get into the field of gerontology is they have that personal connection. So you with your grandmother.
Right.
And it's really interesting to see how that unfolds. But your response really transitions well into my next question is how did you go from that, financial advisor and then your retirement specialist to the Director of Financial Gerontology at Bank of America?
Yeah. So keep in mind that when I went back to school, I was 45 years old. So I was in the midlife of my career. But before that, I transitioned from being a financial advisor to a retirement specialist. And the reason that I did that was as I was starting to approach midlife, I was starting to realize that I kind of have had enough with financial advising. I really wanted to concentrate on, let me take a step back. As a financial advisor, I had really established myself. I had a very successful book of business, and I was no longer doing the things in my day-to-day work that excited me when I became a financial advisor, bringing on new clients and that kind of thing. I was much more in maintenance mode. And so I sat back and I took a look at that and I said, okay, where would I have more fun? Would I have more fun taking my book to the next level and working that way? Or would I have more fun taking on a role where I could do all of the things that I had done before and not have to do that day-to-day sort of minutia that goes along with running a business? So I transitioned from the financial advisor role to the retirement specialist role. Now, the retirement specialist role at Merrill, which is where I was. Merrill is a wholly owned company of Bank of America. The retirement specialist role is interesting because you are serving financial advisors. You cover a territory. So I covered Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Northern Virginia. And I went office to office helping financial advisors do their retirement planning. And so every day was different. I had face-to-face contact with so many different people. And that's really where the questions started to come up that were very different, as I mentioned before. And so that's when I transitioned from financial advisor to retirement specialist while I was the retirement specialist, and those questions were changing. And I'm thinking to myself, I probably could have better answers. And so while I was the specialist, I went to USC and did their online program, which, by the way, was really exciting because when you do their online program, and I know it's this way with many, many schools now, you're actually in the classroom with on-campus students. And so you take the classes live, you just don't have to be on campus. Technology is a wonderful thing when it works, right? Funny story about that, a colleague of mine went to USC several years after I had graduated and sent me a text and he said, "Hey, I'm on your campus." And I said, "What does it look like? I've never been there." So it was kind of amusing. But so I did that while I was in my business with being the retirement specialist. So we had every Friday, the retirement specialist would have a call and, we would talk about the business, and there were 25 of us across the country. So we covered the whole country. And on this particular call, the head of retirement and personal wealth solutions at Merrill got on the call and started to talk about the focus that we as a firm were going to have on what we call the 7 life priorities. Those life priorities are your home, your health, your work, how you spend your leisure time, your family, obviously, giving both to your families and to your communities, and finances. And so we were going to embark on a series of studies around those 7 topics. And he said, we may even hire a gerontologist. And so I pulled over on the side of the road because I was driving from my home in Bel Air to Salisbury on the Eastern Shore. Pulled over on the side of the road, typed an email, and I said, "I'm not sure if you're aware, but I am earning this degree. I'm going to be graduating soon. I would love to hear more about the 7 life priorities and what you're thinking about in terms of the gerontologist." So that night, as I'm crossing the Chesapeake Bay Bridge on my way home from work in the pouring rain on a Friday night, I get a phone call, and that was it. He said, "When you are ready, we have a role for you."
Wow.
And so they just created this role. It was kind of, here's your title, here's what we're going to pay you, have at it. And I had the ability to kind of create, how I wanted it to look, and also to work on those 7 research projects around the life priorities. Once we studied the life priorities, by the way, we then went on and we studied life stages and how those priorities fit and change into the different life stages. And we studied early adulthood, parenting, caregiving, divorce and widowhood, end of life and legacy. And then we branched out and looked at it with a gender lens and did women and financial wellness. And so after we did those studies, I have had the ability to be a part of a wonderful and unprecedented a team of individuals who work in what we call the Retirement and Research Insights team at Bank of America, and we partner with all kinds of organizations and and schools to do research work. We have actually a report coming out with UPenn. We've actually partnered at Georgetown. I'll have to dig out that study and send it to you. But that's it. That's my life story.
Well, and Cyndi, I have to say, first of all, welcome to a fellow Trojan.
Thank you.
Because, yes, and your story really resonates with me because while I was not in financial services, I was in the healthcare industry working for a large insurance company. I also went back and got my master's in gerontology at USC in my early 50s. So I was even a little bit older than you. But
and here I thought I was the oldest.
I know, exactly. But what I wanted to ask you, because as I mentioned before, it's so great to meet you. I've seen your name and really admired the financial gerontology role that you play. Has it been influential, do you think, with some of your peers and colleagues who have said, gosh, that's really interesting, and that's something I think I want to do? Like, is the financial gerontology title and education something that you see growing right now?
Well, I get phone calls all the time from colleagues, mainly financial advisors. Although I have gotten some from people on the banking side who are kind of fascinated with the topic. But as Zoe said, mainly it's because they have had an experience, a life experience with an older person that they care about, and wanted to learn about it, or they were intrigued with the idea of marrying finance and financial services with longevity and living longer lives, which is basically what I do. I actually know of one financial advisor that actually did go back to school and earn her grad degree at USC because I told her about how great the program was and that it was multidisciplinary, and that was one of the most important things to me. If you think about when you and I did our schooling there, and I don't know how long ago that was for you, but for me it was 2013 was when I finished. That was one. Well, first of all, most schools don't have a gerontology master's program. Mm-hmm. When people think about gerontology, they're thinking about actually either geriatricians or mm-hmm. physicians who specialize in older adult care. At the time, and I don't know what the situation is now, there were only 13 medical schools, by the way, in the country that even offered a geriatric specialty. And I think there may even be fewer now, not more, which is kind of crazy. But I did have a particular financial advisor who went to USC, earned her grad degree in gerontology, and is using it exactly as I envisioned it, which was to just better serve her clients. Mm-hmm. I was fortunate because I was the first. So I had a very forward-thinking leadership at my firm that so that I was able to kind of slide into this role, and nobody even really knew it until after it was done. But yeah, I get questions all the time, and I get a lot of inquiry. Like Zoe found me on LinkedIn. I get a lot of inquiries through LinkedIn. I want to know more about what you do. How can I get into this field? And it's exciting for me because if you think about the role of a gerontologist or gerontology in general, it's about the entire life course, right? So for me to be able to influence somebody Zoe's age in the grad program who's just starting out and trying to think about what are the possibilities for me as I move into the working world, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you brought that up because I think that's one of the, the myths, if you will, or misperceptions. And I got the same thing when I got my master's degree. One of my cousins said, "Oh, your mom must be so proud you're a doctor," and I'm like, "No, I'm not."
I get it all the time.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor. But anyway, the fact that you said that gerontology is about the life course, right? We know that it starts in the womb and ends with the tomb, and we're looking at everything in between. And a lot of people only think we look at just that end of life period, and it's really across everything. So I think that's so critical. In terms of the value that you felt you got out of your master's degree in gerontology, how did that, I mean, obviously you got this wonderful new position that they were thinking about, but how else has it really shaped and helped your career?
Well, I will tell you that the degree paid for itself in the first year. The exposure that I got, the credibility that I got in my field, you can't put a price on that. The connections that I've been able to make around the world are pretty incredible. I just got off the phone at 9 o'clock this morning. I had a call with two people in Germany who are putting together an actuarial convention. So it just spans the globe. When I said that the whole world opened up, the whole world opened up, and I mean that literally. If you think about gerontology, and for me, I connected it with finance, but longevity, the study of gerontology connects with everything. I don't know if you all have seen Joe Coughlin's book, The Longevity Economy.
Yes, yeah.
But when you read through that book and you see the connections that he makes, it is applicable in every industry. And so to box yourself into this idea of, I have to be a social worker, or I have to work in a nursing home, or I have to work in a hospital, or whatever it might be, and limit yourself just to thinking that it's that medically connected, caregiving connected type of role is the wrong way to think about it. So you echoed that this is for the life course, and so you can use the gerontology degree to talk to Gen Zers about how they want their work life and home life, family life balance to look like. That's gerontology. It's not just for old people. So I think that it has opened up a remarkable number of avenues to explore, and that's been very exciting. I mentioned earlier, I'm a lifelong learner. I have learned so much more from the people that have contacted me about my role than I've taught them, I can tell you. And that's pretty exciting.
Very.
Super exciting. I first have to say, I'm really happy you responded to my LinkedIn message then, especially because you said you have so many of them. So I'm like, yes, I'm really happy Cyndi responded to me.
Well, yours was intriguing because, well, for a couple of reasons. One is I get a lot of inquiries from USC grad students, but I don't get a lot of inquiries from grad students at other schools. So that was intriguing part number one. Intriguing part number two was that we're kind of local. And so I was excited that was something that we could connect on.
Yes, I am a fellow Marylander as well. So we can definitely
Where did you grow up?
I'm in Bethesda. So,
okay.
And I've been to Bel Air tons of times, so I know exactly where that is.
Yeah, on the opposite end of the state.
It is. But I do know. But just kind of two questions to kind of wrap this up a little bit. I really like how you kind of touched on how gerontology is a life course process, because Sherry and I have discussed, if we're going to be guaranteed with anything is that we're aging every single second. So one of my, the first question to kind of wrap this up is, as the Director of Financial Gerontology, what advice do you have for younger people to kind of how they should think about their future?
Well, I'll put the financial lens on that. Okay. The first thing, and I have a daughter who's 32. She just had her first child. And the first thing that she did was say, Mom, how do I start to plan for his education? So, she's already thinking about his future. But the one thing that I tell her, and I tell every young person that's starting out, is when you get that first job, start contributing to your employer's retirement plan, your 401k, 403b, 457, whatever you have available to you. Start contributing to a health savings account if that's available to you. And when we think about those two pieces, they have tax benefits, right? So if you're putting $50 into your 401k account, it's probably only going to reduce your paycheck by maybe $35. And if you do it in a Roth, it'll reduce your paycheck by $50. But then when you take that out 30, 35, 40 years from now, there's no taxes. So the power of compounded growth is unbelievable. And if you start early, and by the way, when you think about that $50 contribution, it's pizza and beer on a Friday night. So try to see past Friday night, put that money away. And when you wake up at age 65, you're going to have a lot of money. And
a lot more pizza and beer.
A lot more pizza and beer. And let me tell you something, when you get to be my age, pizza and beer, it becomes very important. So that's the first thing I tell people. Make sure that you're contributing to your employer plan. Make sure that you are contributing to an HSA if it's available. An HSA, a health savings account, is something that you don't. I tell people don't use it currently. Try to pay for your expenses for your health. So anything that insurance does not cover, deductibles, copays, that sort of thing. Try to pay for that out of cash flow. Let that HSA accumulate, because that is the vehicle that you can use in the event that you need long-term care later in life. Keep in mind, I know nobody in your age bracket is thinking about Medicare, but right now it only covers a little over 60% of your cost. So that other 40% plus long-term care, which Medicare doesn't cover, is going to fall on you. So that's the other thing. It's very hard to convince somebody in their 20s to do that, but that's the smartest thing to do. The third piece of advice that I would have starting out is don't take on more debt that you can afford. Don't buy a house that's over your head. Settle for a starter home that you can move up into. Don't use your credit cards unless you absolutely have to. And when you're using those credit cards, make sure that you're not charging so much that you can't pay it off each and every month. Don't carry credit card debt. That's the best advice I can give.
I actually think that is just kind of a great place to end this, because it's like hope and great advice you're giving to people my generation and just kind of anyone who's getting into looking at gerontology as a whole. And like you said, just past the older adult stage. But I just, go ahead.
Can I give one more piece of advice?
Yeah, I would love to hear it.
Starting out in your field. So you're graduating with your gerontology degree. Don't put yourself in a box. Okay, start to think about all of the application across all industries, or academia, whatever it is that you want to do. Maybe you want to go on and earn your doctorate, whatever it might be. But don't put yourself in a box. Think about the myriad of opportunities, and be creative. And don't be afraid to develop the value proposition on paper, so that when you're talking to different employers, you can really illustrate the value that you can bring to their organization, because the opportunities are endless if you look outside of where you're kind of geared to look.
And
that's
Cyndi,
really good advice.
I know. I was going to say, Cyndi, I think that's so wonderful. And I think it's great for people to hear that, you can really apply gerontology to just about everything that we touch and do. And, we know there's architects out there getting gerontology degrees, and, people in real estate.
That's a great point.
Yeah. I mean, it's really very, very wide and very vast. And I think you've really opened our eyes to really, think creatively that way and use it in such a great way. So thank you so much. It's been really a delight talking to you.
Yeah,
it's thank you. Thanks for hosting me.
Yeah, we've loved talking today, Cyndi, and look forward to talking to you more in the future.
Thank you. I hope to see you soon.
This is engAGING Gerontology Talks, and thanks everyone for listening.